We're live. I love how Facebook gives you the countdown, the three, two, one. It's so ominous. Anyway, the lighting is not great in here, but we're going to do this anyway. I wanted to do a short video on Sagittarian children, kind of just a high level overview. We are in the middle of Sagittarian season, so I thought it'd be a good time to do that. About a month ago, we talked about a little bit about Gemini children in my upcoming book. Next month, we'll talk about Capricorn energy. That's kind of near and dear to my heart, as is Sagittarius. So going to be going over the main traits of Sagittarian kids and kind of some tips and tricks for parenting them, because it's not always easy. Okay, got my handy note list here so I don't forget anything. Sagittarius is, as you know, a fire sign. We're talking mainly about kids who have their sun sign in Sagittarius, although a lot of this energy will come into play if you have the moon in Sagittarius too. So Sag is a fire sign. They're very passionate. They're very demonstrative with affection, which is great. As parents, we love our kids to be affectionate with us, openly affectionate. They're big huggers. They like to hug their parents. As they get older and adults, that kind of carries over. They like to hug their friends, a little bit touchy-feely sometimes. But overall, it's a very passionate sign. Can get very emotional. So the symbol of Sagittarius is the centaur. I always find this fascinating. It's half man, half archer to be specific, half horse. That's an excellent symbol for the sign, because Sagittarians tend to have kind of a wild, untamed quality about them, especially the men, especially the boys. I had a Sagittarius man say to me once, quote, "Just let me roam wild and free," unquote. That's pretty much how they are. They like to be unencumbered. They love the outdoors. They love physical activity. They have a lot of physical energy. So if you're parenting a Sagittarian child, especially a boy or boys, you're going to have to make sure they get a lot of physical activity. For example, my son is a Scorpio. He does need physical activity, but he's also happy kind of sitting, being quiet and reflective and reading. Sagittarian, it's very different. They need an outlet for all the physical energy that they have. They love outdoors activities, camping, hiking, being in nature, all that stuff. They love adventurous activities. This is something where you can work on strengthening your relationship with the Sagittarian child, is by doing these kind of activities together, doing these adventurous activities like floating the river, kayaking, ziplining, hiking, camping, taking them to see new places, travel, where you're participating in the activity with them. You're not sitting on the sidelines, where you're doing it with them. They love that the parents do the activity with them. So take them on all those adventurous kind of activities. They love it. Horseback riding, they love animals, all that stuff. They need a lot of physical and intellectual stimulation. What else? Sag is a freedom-loving sign. They need freedom to do their own activities, to pursue their own interests. They are not children that respond well to helicopter parenting. I'm not an advocate of helicopter parenting, on being on top of your kid all the time. Because kids grow up into adults, they have to be independent and learn how to function without their parents when you're not around, right? They have to make the right call, make their own decisions. So I'm not a fan of that strategy in general, but some children tolerate it more than others. Water sign children, Pisces, Cancer, may tolerate the helicopter hovering. Sometimes Libra, it's the more diplomatic sign, it's an air sign. They may tolerate the helicopter parenting a little bit sometimes, but Sag will not. If you helicopter parent a Sagittarius child, you're going to have a bad time, okay? It's not going to go well. It's a recipe for disaster. They need freedom to pursue their own interests. They don't like to be unencumbered. They don't want you breathing down their neck all the time. Okay, it's a very social, gregarious energy. It's typically an extroverted energy, although I do know Sagittarians who test as introverts. But they typically love to go out with their friends. They have a large group of friends. They like to be at the center of attention. They love to impress their friends with these wild, crazy stories. So that's typically the energy. Sag kids who are introverts will be talkative and hang out with their friends and be social, but they'll need to bookend those periods of being social with periods of downtime where they're just checking my microphone, where they can recover their energy. But one of the things that may make parenting a Sag kid a little bit easier is they're really an open book. By contrast, Scorpio children are very secretive. It's very hard for them to open up and talk to somebody about kind of their deepest feelings. But Sag, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. So they will talk to you about anything. They're very open. That's great because you want to encourage your child to always talk to you, to speak to you freely, as long as they're respectful. So you want there to always be communication with your child. And that's very important to establish, because when they're teenagers, they're going to be a lot more reserved and reticent and more hesitant to talk to mom and dad about stuff. So you want them to talk to you. So you always want to encourage them to talk to you freely. That's what I would say about that. What else? Oh, I love this. So the Sag sign, we also refer to it as the philosopher. It's a sign that needs a lot of intellectual stimulation, as well as kind of the physical release of energy, the physical activity. Sag is a solution-oriented sign. They love to solve problems. They especially love to solve and think about philosophical problems, philosophical issues. So things like feeding their mind, taking them to museums, giving them a wide variety of books to read and seeing what they like. Those are great things to do to stimulate your kids' minds. Sag is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion. So Sag people, Sag children too, tend to have kind of a larger than life personality. Like we said before, very gregarious, very open, very friendly, big huggers a lot of the time. Sometimes they have kind of this exaggerated manner of being, especially when they're kids. That's just how they are. That's kind of the nature of the sign. I'm going to close this short video with, I'm laughing because this is like, for me, the bane of my existence with fire signs. But all fire signs, Aries and Sag especially, are very ego-oriented. So they tend to think of themselves first. Now, kids, when they're adolescents and teenagers, parenting experts will tell you they go through these phases where they are more ego-oriented and appear to be selfish, and because their brains haven't fully functioned, right? There's been a lot of literature on this about how teenagers are, seeking adrenaline, and that's why they sometimes make decisions without thinking about consequences and things like that. But so that's kind of adolescents and teenagers in general, but fire signs, they're like that even as adults. So it makes parenting a fire sign child especially challenging because number one, they may be a little more ego oriented. So they're thinking of themselves before thinking of the other person. But also they don't tend to think about consequences until they're actually faced with the consequences of their action. So they'll make the decision without considering all the consequences, and then they're faced with the consequences, and sometimes they're negative. A sign like Capricorn is very calculating. Like me, I think about all potential outcomes and consequences on all sides before I make a decision. So it typically takes me a long time to make a decision. But fire sign people, they just make the decision and then they deal with the consequences on the back end. So with kids, we're always trying to teach them about natural consequences of their actions. Well, what do we learn from this experience, right? Kind of a mundane, harmless example is like if your older child is helping you cook in the kitchen and they dump a whole bunch of spices into a dish and it's too much and it's oversalted and the dish is like ruined, right? Well, I would think you put a little bit of spices in, you taste the dish, then you adjust the spice level, right? You add more spices. That's how you do, because once you add all these spices, dump them in, you can't take them back out. But the Sag child won't think about that. Sag adult won't think about that much of the time. It's just how they are. So as I always say, natural consequences are an excellent teacher. You're going to have to just try to get them to step back once in a while and think about what could happen from this decision, right? From what you want to do. But it's the type of Sag is a type of sign that they kind of launch themselves out there in the world. It's the ego-oriented nature of the fire sign, right? And then they deal with kind of the fallback from their decisions. So makes parenting them a little challenging. Every child has their own challenges regarding parenting, but they're very lovable, loyal, fun-loving. They love to have fun. So if you're, when you're getting them to do chores and things like that, don't make the chores a punishment. Tell them, you have to help the team. We're all a team in the family. Got to help the team, and try to see if you can make the chores or the activity more fun, right? Sag is a fun-loving sign. If you can do fun activities, laugh together, have some good times together, that goes a long way toward strengthening your relationship with your Sag child. So that's all I have for today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Comment below, email me, and I will see you next month when we talk about Capricorn kids, and that's going to be interesting. Okay, happy holidays.